Bob Herbert's OpEd.tv is made possible in part by the CUNY TV Foundation with the support of Ann Ulnick. Hi, I'm Bob Herbert. Welcome to OpEd.tv. We are, at this moment, living through one of the most important and tumultuous periods in the United States since World War II. It is crucial that the public have a clear understanding of this era, which means that good, solid journalism is as important now as it has ever been. Are we up to this challenge, or are we failing? To paraphrase Ed Koch, how are we doing? I'll ask my guest, Pamela Newkirk, a veteran reporter, author, and editor who is now a journalism professor at NYU. Professor, welcome. Thank you for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
So let's take a look at the major news outlets first, like the New York Times and the Washington Post and the major TV and cable networks. Who's doing well and who's doing not so well?
Well, the ones you just named are doing well. They got the Trump bump, right?
The Post and the Times.
The Washington Post and the New York Times, circulation is like going through the roof. And, you know, the smaller regional papers are still struggling.
Right.
But I think even some of them are getting a bump from all of the news that's coming at us with such ferocity, right?
And the Times and the Post are both doing very good work. They're doing very good journalism.
They may be saving our democracy,
right.
You know, because every time someone poses the question, how is the media doing, or is the media up to the challenge? And it's like, the media is what's left to save our democracy.
Right. So I was actually concerned. The Washington Post was in very serious trouble not that long ago. There were really questions about whether it would survive. Then Jeff Bezos, the CEO of Amazon, bought them.
Right.
I still was concerned. I'm figuring here's another rich guy.
Many people were worried.
It into a vanity publication.
Precisely.
It hasn't been that.
No, what he's done is he has invested in the newsroom. They hired, you know, dozens of reporters and really shored it up for what we're facing now, these challenges in Washington. So no, I think many of us were worried, and it hasn't proven to be, you know, a concern.
So what about TV? So now you have, I mean, it's MSNBC, it's CNN, it's Fox News. The networks don't really do that much in the way of news.
No, but they have also benefited from Trump, but I don't know if our democracy has benefited from them, right? Because, you know, I really fault cable television for giving Trump this access to the airwaves without any real scrutiny when he was running for office. So all of the investigations that are happening now, investigative journalism, I should say, we didn't really get that. All we had was him on the air 24/7, and it was like a love fest.
This whole idea of almost a total focus on Donald Trump on television, to a lesser degree newspapers, but on television. Where did that come from? I mean, is that just strictly a matter of it's a combination of celebrity and economics?
Yeah, well, because they go together, right? You know, the public likes to say we want serious news, but celebrity always trumps news. And in Trump, they have both. They have a celebrity and news, and so it's like this perfect storm for the news media, for the television news media.
So what happens to all those other stories, many of them major stories, that would have been covered if we weren't focused on Trump all the time?
I mean, it's all that there is right now, especially on cable television. I mean, Puerto Rico, like climate change, like all of these things, major news stories that are being just totally overshadowed by Trump. And I have to say that at least now, much of the coverage is focused on the right set of issues. The corruption,
right.
the graft.
Oh, it's an important story, and I agree that it's the most important story in the country right now. But it's not the only story.
It's not the only
in the country.
story.
That's my problem.
No. It's overshadowing a lot. But we've talked about how on any given day there's so many front page stories just out of the White House alone.
Exactly. Just one after another.
So, I mean, it's hard for other legitimate news stories to compete with all the news coming out of Washington.
Now, one of the things when you talk about media these days is the proliferation of news outlets or outlets that pretend that they're journalism outlets or whatever. So you're a professor at one of our great universities, NYU.
Mm-hmm.
Where do your students, for the most part, get their news?
Well, I make them read newspapers online. But it's interesting because of our orientation. We assume that they're not well read because they don't have the same reading habits as an earlier generation. But they're actually reading a lot, and they're reading across all these platforms, and they're getting, stories from the New York Times and stories from Mother Jones and stories from The Nation, and they're not distinguishing between one news outlet and the other or in another. So they're just reading a lot. So it's different, but they are reading.
But all the ones that you just named, I mean, they're very good news outlets. I think what I'm trying to get at is the fact that there are so many other outlets, and I'm wondering whether the young folks are able to distinguish between those that are reliable and those that are less reliable or not reliable at all.
I think the election showed us that most Americans don't distinguish. Of course, journalism students, we're teaching them how to distinguish. So my students may not be the best way to gauge how informed the public is, but most.
So they're ahead of most people.
Only because we're kind of
because of their professor.
Right, because that's what we're teaching them, how to be discerning consumers of news, right? But most Americans never have any media literacy courses, so how would they know that what's on Facebook could be coming from, evildoers or.
Well, one of the consequences of that is the administration that we have now in all the chaos that surrounds it. But are there other consequences? Let's say Trump had not become president. We still would have had this problem of keeping the public informed and the public not being sophisticated about news outlets.
This lack of sophistication, it all goes together. It all goes hand in hand. We have someone like Trump in office because over the years, we've become a less discerning public when it comes to news, which resulted in the circulation decline at newspapers, so it all it all feeds the whole widespread ignorance of news and information and how it's so central to our democracy. I mean, and here we are.
Right, we're seeing the results.
We are.
One of the things since the advent of Trump that I think is particularly dangerous has been his relentless, often brutal attack on news outlets.
So dangerous.
Print, television, sometimes targeting specific reporters. It is dangerous. Explain why it's dangerous.
Well, he's obviously doing it because the media is on to him, and so he wants to discredit mainstream journalism so that you won't believe, for instance, anything that comes out of this Mueller investigation. Everything is fake news, right? The only real news comes from Fox. And so it's very dangerous, but it's also like right out of the autocrat's playbook, right? This is what you do. You delegitimize the media. You delegitimize any dissent. And so we're at this really dangerous place. I mean, even when I was in Brussels recently, you hear the fake news. Everything is fake news. And it's very effective. I mean, unfortunately, it's a very effective strategy.
You just touched on the fact that we're seeing this in so many places outside of the United States, and it goes hand in hand, and you're correct, with these authoritarian governments. I mean, we saw it in Turkey, we see it in Russia, we see it in China.
African nations, that have autocrats as leaders. I mean, it's a very effective strategy.
So I think that the implications of this are not being made clear to the American public. I would have said before the emergence of Trump that it would have been up to the news media, what I think of as the legitimate news media, to keep the public informed, to make this a big story. What's happened? That's not occurring.
I think one of the major problems has been, I hate to call out one network, but Fox News has been disseminating outright propaganda and lies. And Fox News is competitive with all of the other major television networks. And I think it's resulted in this whole atmosphere. People don't distinguish between NBC News and CBS News and Fox News, or at least some people don't. And so I think that is different. I don't think we've ever experienced anything quite like what we're seeing now, where you have a major television network that feeds the public propaganda. I mean, it's become like an arm of Trump,
but
his administration.
Isn't that, shouldn't that be a major news story?
Right.
And shouldn't the other news outlets cover Fox for what it is?
And I think what's happened with the other news networks, if they've tried to compete with Fox.
Right.
And so it's like they've all kind of played to the lowest common denominator, because Fox had this like really, a major base.
They see Fox being successful.
It's successful, and so
instead of calling them out, they emulate.
Exactly.
We talked about Jeff Bezos and Amazon and his purchase of the Washington Post, and you made the point that one of the things that has been so helpful is the infusion of money that he was able to put into the paper.
Yeah, I think it's the first time in decades we've seen any major newspaper hiring
Right, exactly.
100 or more reporters.
But big money is not always a big help when it comes to media, and I've got Rupert Murdoch in mind.
Exhibit A.
So, can you talk a little bit about the effect that Rupert Murdoch has had on American journalism?
Yeah, I mean, so Fox News is one example of that. And I mean, Rupert Murdoch has been successful around the globe. But, he's really, really infected Fox News and therefore the American public with a brand of journalism. It's really not journalism. It's almost like they have a script. And
well, it started a long time ago with the New York Post. Yeah.
Exactly. And it's a very troubling development, because now we see how it has corroded our sense of fairness. And I mean, it's so troubling that how effective it's been, and it's making a difference. It's confusing a lot of people. I mean, I know people who watch Fox as if it's a legitimate news source.
Oh, I know lots of people who do, yeah.
So troubling.
And if you travel around the country, I mean, we're here in New York, but if you travel around the country, forget about it.
Yeah, you go to airports and you see, Fox News.
It becomes, for many people, it's their main source.
Right. And you're right, it hasn't been a major news story. Mm-hmm. It hasn't, who is out there like citing all of the ways in which Fox News has misinformed and intentionally misinformed the American public.
Right. What do you tell your students, or what kinds of discussions occur in your classrooms about Fox News specifically? I would imagine it comes up.
It comes up, but probably, you could have a whole course just on Fox News.
It's a good idea.
It's a pretty good idea.
We should have a course on it, and we should have tremendous coverage of it.
No, seriously, because it comes up as an example of shoddy journalism, but not as a focus of, a systemic kind of problem that we have now.
Now, I'm older than you are, but we both go back to an era when newspapers were still flourishing,
vibrant,
and it was possible to make a decent living, and it was much easier to get work as a reporter or an editor in those days,
right?
The glory days.
No, seriously, because I come out of the generation that was inspired by Watergate, right? And you're a little older, so
I come out of the Watergate generation.
Right. But the civil rights movement and like all of the kind of coverage that was so inspiring, right? And that showed us that journalism made a difference, right? And we also are part of that generation that began to integrate mainstream newsrooms, right? So we come out of the heyday, these were heady times to be a journalist, right? And so now this generation is looking at the dismantlement of newspapers, right? And they're looking at a period where legitimate news and illegitimate news are side by side, and it's really difficult to tell the difference between one and the other. So it's a much more sobering time to be a journalist.
Economics were always at play. In newspapers in those days, it was really expensive. I mean, you had people had beats.
Journalism is expensive.
They paid salaries and they paid benefits to reporters and editors. They had investigative teams.
Right. You could spend months on one
story. They had foreign bureaus in some newspapers.
Precisely.
Yeah.
So, I mean, heady time.
After a while, it became impossible to sustain.
Right.
But it became impossible to sustain, but there were very few alternatives.
Right.
There weren't outlets, for the most part, that picked up the slack.
But I think there was also a greater appreciation in the public for good journalism, right?
In those days.
I agree. So that mattered, and that is why they invested in these expensive, investigative units, foreign bureaus. And then, with the advent of celebrity journalism, it's kind of an oxymoron, celebrity and journalism.
It
but it became, it started to usurp serious news.
And that became a cheaper way of
And it was much cheaper, and there were more eyeballs on it.
Yep.
And so then, and all of this, you could really trace and draw a straight line from the days when we were practicing daily journalism and the rise of celebrity journalism and where we are today.
You mentioned the fact that in those days, if I started in the business in 1970, in the 70s and 80s, you began to see African Americans coming into the newsrooms. Before that, it was really unusual, almost nobody.
And I started in the 80s, and I was the only African American reporter in 3 newsrooms.
Right. So, and then we began to see more people coming in.
Yeah.
That has ceased.
Oh, absolutely.
And what I want to know is, are we going backwards?
Oh, we've definitely gone backwards. But, so the problem is the economics of the whole industry kind of, collapsed, and so white reporters were losing their jobs. So, of course, black reporters were losing their jobs, and we never really, were there in sufficient numbers to begin with. And so now you hardly hear about calls for diversity in the industry, as you did in the 1980s when it was like a big thing.
Right.
That's all people talked about was news diversity. And so yeah, it's been a very challenging time for journalists of color. That said, as the numbers of news outlets dwindle, the percentage of journalists of color in the newsroom is around 16%. And that's if you believe the 40% of the news organizations that even respond to that survey.
Right.
I always have, I've contended that the 60% that don't respond, there's a reason they're not responding.
Right.
So if more of them responded, I'm sure that 16% would drop.
And also you have many fewer reporters of color in decision-making. Positions.
Right, and we've never really cracked
and that has to do with newspapers, that has to do with television, if you go behind the cameras and television.
Yeah, it's like 90 some odd percent, or not just people of color, but women as well, are kind of shut out of the executive suite in the news industry.
So is there anything that can be done about that? I mean, is this just a lost cause? Who should be fighting the good fight here?
I think, it's been a decades-long battle, and I think, people are battle weary, but I think people are still fighting that fight. But it's I wrote an article a few years ago about the reverse migration of journalists of color, particularly black journalists, from these mainstream newspapers to black interest publications, and
resegregation.
Yeah, and that's what we're kind of looking at. And then you look at even all of these online outlets have become segregated.
Right.
There's the black HuffPost, there's the Latino HuffPost. Like
I'm actually outraged by that. What the heck is that?
it's so.
What do you mean
yeah, but so it's like segregation has become. It was something that we were trying to move away from, and
one of the things I fought my entire career was not to get pigeonholed.
Exactly, and now it's a thing again. It's like that's where people see as the answer to what ails us.
So we are in this period where there are constraints, and that's across the board. This is in newspapers and even in TV. It's just not easy to get a job.
And
it's not easy to establish a career.
Are as radically underrepresented in news as they were 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Now we're almost 40% of the national population, and if you're holding 16% of newsroom jobs, that's not even close to where it should be.
Do most of your students want to be journalists?
Yes.
So what's the
now there's a caveat there. Most of my students, because I think I attract a certain kind of student to my classrooms.
Right.
I would say that at least half of our graduates go on to other careers. Many of them go to law school. Some of them go into marketing. They go into other things.
The ones who want to go into journalism, how difficult is it for them to get a foothold? How do you get that gig?
The ones who actually want to do it are getting jobs. They're in demand because they can do, our students can do all the things that our generation of journalists can or don't want to do. They can work across platforms. They take pictures, they do video, they edit, they do everything. They tweet, so they're very much in demand. So our students who want to go into the business are getting good jobs.
And are they, that's what I wanted to know, are they solid jobs, with benefits, reasonably decent salaries?
And I would say our best students, the ones who are competitive, they really are. Your Mish Alcindor was one of our students, and now she's doing exceedingly.
She was at the Times, and now she's on TV now.
She just was hired by PBS.
PBS, right?
Yeah, so she's doing exceedingly well, and I can name so many of our students who are doing well. The ones who want to do serious journalism can often get jobs because, unfortunately, a lot of young people don't want to do serious journalism. They want to do the celebrity stuff. They want to be magazine journalists, and there were never many jobs in magazine.
Right.
So
we've run out of time.
Already.
But it's good to stop on a positive note. So Professor Pamela Newkirk, thanks so much for coming in.
Thank you.
We'll be back in a moment with a final word. There must be some explanation. The New York City Police Department has all but stopped enforcing the marijuana laws against white people. But the cops are still busting black and brown people for smoking or possessing pot. How can that be? I don't know why black and Hispanic New Yorkers are getting arrested nearly 10 times as often as whites for marijuana offenses. Study after study has shown that blacks and whites, for example, smoke pot at roughly the same rates. And yet the police department's own stats show this great disparity in the arrest rates. Last year, about 17,500 people were arrested for smoking or possessing pot. 86% of them were black or Hispanic. Just 9% were white. Those arrest rates were very similar to the arrest rates in 2016 and 2015. In other words, it's not a fluke. Black and brown people get arrested for pot. White people hardly ever do. Take 2015, for example. 50% of the people arrested for pot were black. 38% were Latino. Just 8% were white. The cops don't have a decent explanation for this. I do. The marijuana laws are not enforced against white people. They basically get a pass. And that's racism. Why it's tolerated, I don't know. Why Mayor Bill de Blasio and Police Commissioner James P. O'Neill allowed this grotesque, apartheid-like abuse of the law to continue is a mystery. It's also shameful. That's all for now. See you next time.